In some relationships, we find ourselves without family or friends. It seems like everybody's gone. And we begin to start looking at that situation and we realize that we had to push people away because our spouse or significant other didn't like our family, didn't get along with our mom or dad, didn't get along with our friends, and the list goes on. But all of a sudden, one day, you find out that the relationship is about to end. Perhaps your significant other has said that they're done with it, they're ready to leave. But what do you do to get your support system back? How do you reconnect and how do you circle the wagons? Hey friends, glad to be back today, and today I'm talking about circling the wagons, getting that support system back. How do we do it? How do we reach back out to family and friends? And how do we get them to understand why we distance ourselves, forgive us, and be able to come back into our lives? Because right now, we probably need them more than ever. The backstory behind this situation, and I think you've probably lived it, is the fact that over time, you had great relationships with your family. Coming into that relationship, things were good. You had great relationships with your friends, and things were good too. But over time, your significant other found fault in these people. And so you kept distancing yourself. You spent less and less time because you didn't want to deal with the blowback. You didn't want to deal with the anger or frustration from your significant other, so you just decided, well, I just don't want to deal with it. Every time you went and saw your family, they would have a problem with you or argue with you, or every time you went and saw a friend of yours, there would be questions, or when are you going to come home, or how long are you going to be gone, and there was that constant questioning. And so that began to basically kind of take away from the fun that you were having and take away from the desire to be with these people because you knew that you were going to pay for it when you got back home. And so now it's interesting that when you look at the situation and there might be possible threats from your significant other saying that they want a divorce or they want to break up, and maybe they're not all threats, and so you're worried right now at this point. Here I am, I have literally sequestered myself, I am really on my own, and now the person that I've sequestered myself with is finding fault with me on a constant basis, finding my faults. There's a little bit of manipulation and probably some gaslighting going on. I'm trying to walk on eggshells to deal with the situation as properly as I can. However, there's a situation where this person's not really self-aware constantly of what they're doing and what they're saying. They're not aware of their own self-sabotage. I've been trying to make them aware, but they haven't been able to see that reality. And so right now you kind of feel like a loner, right? You're alone. You don't have those family and friends to talk to. So what do we do to start balancing this situation out? Because we can feel very alone in this situation, as oftentimes when we feel alone, when somebody's threatening to leave us, we may start giving them whatever they want so that they don't leave us because we're in fear of being alone, in fear of living alone for that matter. The first thing that I suggest is reaching out to any of your old friends, the friends that were there for you that you started emotionally distancing yourself from because your spouse, significant other didn't like them, but start reaching out to the ones that you were very close with prior to the situation. Reaching out to each one individually, hoping to set up a time to meet them in person so that you can talk to them, so they can see your face, so they can have some FaceTime with you and really get to understand where you're coming from. Because oftentimes, as a friend, it's really hard when somebody cuts you out of their life, right? When you get cut out of someone's life and you don't even know what you did, it can be kind of challenging. And so a lot of the folks that you're going to want to reconnect with might be a little upset, might be a little hurt, but if you actually meet them in person and explain, it was my fault, I'm not putting this whole blame on my spouse, but I did do a lot of emotional distancing because every time I spent time with you, I got a lot of problems and a lot of blowbacks, and quite honestly, I just didn't want to hear the yelling and arguing anymore. And it's not right what I did, and I'm apologizing for doing this, but I definitely would like to do anything I can to build this relationship back, to strengthen this friendship back. Let me know if that's possible. It's very important to do this because a lot of people don't even know what happened. And it can be really painful. I've even had this experience on my own where I've had people cut me out and then they come back and tell me exactly why they did. I knew what was going on because of my familiarity with the situation, but it still hurt a little bit. So if you can sit back and say, okay, I know that I've probably hurt their feelings. Let me have some FaceTime. Let me go out of my way and show them that I care. They might not come around immediately, but if you are consistent, not pushy, but consistent, usually more often than not, they'll forgive you and you can start slowly rebuilding that friendship. The second thing that we want to do is reach out to our family members. Reach out to mom, dad, sisters and brothers that we have emotionally and physically distanced ourselves from. The reason why I say that we should reach out to them second after our friends is that it just seems a little bit easier to reach back out to friends and to start this process with people that we're not related to, okay? And the reason for that is that I feel that sometimes friends can understand a little better. I also feel that there's usually not as much time, not as much water under the bridge. But the biggest thing is that you eventually have those friends that you can talk to and you can start having that conversation and start having that support system, because your family might be a little more challenging. They might be a little less able to see maybe your point of view, and you're going to maybe need to do a little bit more work than you have to do with your friends to get them to understand that you really weren't just throwing them to the wolves, that you were actually doing this for self-preservation, and then explaining the situation behind the self-preservation, because a lot of people don't know what goes on behind closed doors. And I think that's interesting because people don't understand. They don't get it. They just think that you've pulled away emotionally because that's what you wanted to do. You need to explain that that's not what you wanted to do, that you were doing it because you didn't want the fights, you didn't want the arguments, you didn't want the yelling, you didn't want the screaming, and also the person that you're in a relationship with was constantly telling you that if you spend more time with them, they're just going to leave. And so out of fear of losing the relationship was the other reason why you did what you did. And when people start realizing this and understanding this, and these are people that you can obviously trust with this information, over time they come around. As you start showing them how much they matter and how much you want to repair the relationship, this becomes more and more of a support system, and they begin to understand. Because remember, one big caveat is when you separated yourself emotionally, you were not telling these people what you were going through. They had no idea. They just thought you were dealing with a bigger, better deal, that you were just happy on your own, you didn't need them anymore. So being able to explain that you were dealing with this toxicity in the dynamic and understanding that toxicity, and not giving all the blame to your significant other, but also sharing that blame and saying, hey, I had a lot to do with this. It took 50% of me to do this, but I did this for these reasons. It doesn't make it right, but I want to come back here. I want to explain to you, and I hope that you can take my apology and we can move forward with this relationship. The importance of doing these two things is creating that support system that's necessary, especially when anybody's going through a breakup or divorce. We want to have people that we can talk to that are supportive of us, and we don't want to feel like an isolated person on an island by ourselves. Because more often than not, if we're dealing with someone that is wanting to leave us for whatever reason that is, they're probably putting a lot of things on us, making us feel really low or down about ourselves, but we're also feeling sad about the fact that we're getting a divorce, right? And so we need to have that support system around us. Also, the greatest thing about this is that it starts teaching us that the next time we're in a relationship, we're not going to allow somebody to get in the way of our friendships or allow somebody to get into the way of our family dynamic and relationships, because that can be so hard. It can be hard to repair. But what I've realized is that relationships can usually go through a tough situation like this, but multiple tough situations like this can be really challenging to repair. So understanding that, okay, I went through this, I've apologized, I've done everything I can, I'm building these relationships, I've been honest about my situation with people who are safe to be honest about my situation with. Now I have the support system, I'm not alone. Yes, I have to go through this divorce or this separation or this breakup on my own, but I have people that I have as a support system and can communicate with me and I can talk to as well. If you found this content helpful or interesting, give us a like. If you haven't already subscribed to the channel, please do so. We also have a membership availability here on YouTube, or you can go to ashleyburgess.com and click on that top banner and you can join our membership group for free, and there'll be a lot of activities and different things that'll be going on throughout the year that we will let you know about. In the comment section below, do you have any further questions on reestablishing that support system in the middle of a breakup or divorce? If you do, I'll respond back to you in this comment section. In the meantime, thank you for tuning in and watching this video, and don't forget to live your true life.